Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award-winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started? Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Now, I don't know how many times I have seen in a Facebook group that somebody posts that their Ecom website has been hacked, but they don't mean hacked. What they mean is cloned. Somebody has taken essentially their whole entire website, or maybe just a product and the copy and the images, and they're impersonating a legitimate brand. And I'll be honest, it was only 2 weeks ago that I was scrolling through my Facebook feed and a store came up, and I had been looking at dining chairs. And if you listen to the podcast, you will know I talked about the dining chairs. And this brand came up and the dining chairs, but they were ridiculously low priced. Like, I think there was something like $79 when the chairs were $400 or $500 each. And so I immediately, my red flags, flew up. And I clicked through, and it was obviously a scammed website. However, what I noticed was it looked almost identical. The URL was almost identical, and this was a paid ad. And you would think if someone is running a paid ad to a website, that you would think that Meta had done some kind of protection to make sure that your money was going to a real company, but not in this case. And so I thought this was such an important issue that I wanted to bring you on someone who knows way more about this than I do. So welcome to the show, Steven Weigler from Emerge Consult. You are going to help us not only protect our ecom websites, but also give us some ideas on what we can do if we find somebody has taken our websites and cloned them, or taken our products, or even the look and feel, all those kinds of things, and they're using it to impersonate our brand. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, Selena, it's so good to see you. How you explained it is you explained it very well, and it was thought provoking for me, because a lot of what we deal with in the United States in our legal structure, and also Australia or Britain, it doesn't matter. We, coming from the common law, the law takes a really long time to pull together. So the law, like centuries. And so the law that a lot of us use to enforce some of these things is a lot older and really focused on, horse thieves and the idea of maybe stealing an ad or having a candy bar in a store that looks similar. And now we're in the 21st century where everything is exponentially easier and also very electronic and very omnichannel as far as marketing. And so, I don't thinking about it, the laws really have not necessarily caught up to the type of infringement and type of counterfeiting and piracy that we see in the world, nor is the international relations at its all-time high. And so we have an issue also, because this is not only coming from just the United States or just Australia or just Britain, it's coming from other countries a lot of times. And so, we have to take into consideration how the laws interplay with each other.
And I was going to say, surely that whole cross-border thing becomes very complicated, because we read all about in third world countries where there are whole scam farms, like whole buildings with hundreds, if not thousands of people trapped in there, whose whole job it is to scam other people's money. And this is just one of the, I think everybody's been on the receiving end of some kind of fraudulent scam potential. I finally got the "Hey Mum" text the other day. How old is that? And I finally got it. And I felt, wow, they finally found me. Of course, I was very aware of it. But like you said, that whole, digital is so hard to keep up with. I mean, AI just in the last sort of 12 or 18 months has changed the game. And I know that if we have time, we'll talk about that. But even being able to for the laws to be able to keep up with this brings about a bigger issue. And I'm guessing it means that kind of a lot of people are having to go out there and set the precedent and bring these things, into the legal realm in order for the laws to change.
I think it super emphasizes what my strategy has always been, which is to have a strategy. Even in my practice, I'm faced with the ability to omnichannel market all the time. I'm getting calls from vendors in radio or, less and less, but web plays, pay to plays. I can go on and on. And so it's really like, all right, first, I think the most important thing is to look at the strength and weakness, or what's really important to you in your market identity. I know a lot of my clients focus on e-commerce. And so I can tell you almost in my sleep what is important to an e-commerce brand. It's the brand, which the brand is the identity of how a consumer is going to perceive you. And so it could go into product packaging. It could go into colors. It's definitely going to be the name. And how are they going to find you in e-commerce? The E is electronic. And so it's going to be a domain. And so already, just by knowing in that particular type of industry, or even take my law firm, because my clients are all over the United States and the world, the internet's very important for me. It's very important for me to get my mission and branding message and everything out there using the internet. So I know that that's going to be an important part of what I need to protect. But say you were doing lawns, you had a lawn care service that was local. Well, that would be all different set of things that are important to you. You're going to want to, if paint your lawnmowers a certain color, so everyone, when you can see the lawnmower. So, and the internet might be just a local type of thing where you have to protect it. And so it really is like you have to know your marketing plan and distill your business, or at least have a stake to put in the sand.
We're building up a wall to reduce the chances that somebody can take our identity of our brand. And then if something has happened, that we have these legal standpoints, these lines in the sand that we've drawn that show that this is our thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's to take a step back. That's a good way to look at it. It's really like, if you're afraid that you're going to get infringed upon, which is happening a lot more, your product's going to be pirated, your website's going to be pirated, you're going to see identical listings on Amazon or Walmart, you're going to see a Shopify site that's identical, that's going to be really difficult to take down. So before that happens, you kind of got to take a look at, all right, what do I have and what's important for me in my product identity? Then
that's a really good way of putting it, is what is important. Like, if somebody took this from me, if someone took this from our company, would it affect our brand? Like, would it reduce the amount of sales that we get? Would it reduce the amount of customers that we would get? Would it reduce the amount of money, our brand presence, all of those things? So that, I think you've hit the nail on the head for me. And I think that's such a pertinent thing, is what is important to us when it comes to our business and our brand, that if someone took it away, we'd essentially be screwed.
Yeah. And so then the next one, you kind of, and usually you work with an attorney or, and sometimes a brand, but to really figure out what's your brand identity? What is the important pieces? And then you kind of look at, I don't have the crown jewels in the Tower of London. So I don't have to build a security system for that. I have to build a little security system that almost any business, because every business has a brand or brand identity, unless you run private prisons or something, something that, who cares what it's called? Or you have the cure for cancer. I always use an example, because if you have the cure for cancer, forget everything I'm talking about, because you're going to make a ton of money. Who cares what it's called? If you can get it out there, that would be a patent, but you get it out there patented, who cares the rest of it? That's the wall. The patent is going to do everything. But most of us don't have the cure for cancer. No, none of us do. And so we're really focused on, all right, let's take little pieces of what's really important and use 4 tools that attorneys and others use, which are trademark, which protect the brand. So when you see, I always have people drive by a McDonald's and notice in the corner of the McDonald's sign, there's this little R, tiny. They don't want you to see it, but it shows everyone that that's a registered trademark. And if you go into a McDonald's, I could blindfold you and put you in a McDonald's in Perth or Los Angeles. It doesn't matter. It looks like a McDonald's. So that's all brand identity. And so that's very advanced brand identity. But when I'm saying strategize, everyone has a little bit of uniqueness in brand identity. And so we have to distill it and be able to build a tiny little wall, one or two trademarks maybe, to focus on that element of protection, which is for brand. Copyright protects like product packaging or color schemes or artwork on the packaging. Well, packaging is very important. A majority of the disputes are they copy your product packaging. And if they that can easily be handled through through copyright. So that's copyright it's a relatively simple application, but you have to know what you're looking for to build that part of the wall.
You said that, first of all, trademark. Now, trademark is going to cost you money. And to me, it is money well spent, and it's going to take you time. I know for the trademarks that we have for Scale Your Store and the Retail Academy, I think it took us around about 18 months in the US. Sometimes you get asked for additional information and my attorney looked after that. But copyright is not a thing you pay for, is it?
In the United States, it's suggested that you go through the U.S. Copyright Office because you can't sue unless you actually formally get the copyright. But to prepare the application and we're talking like a $200-something investment total, everything. Copyright is cheaper and takes less time usually than trademark. The two elements of copyright are they original works of art and are they in a fixed media? So if it moves, that's not a fixed media. But if you could ever fix it, it's a fixed media. So film is a fixed media.
Is a website a fixed media?
Website is a fixed media, but it can get really tricky. So... And these people are paid to sit there all day, every day, and figure out what a fixed media is and figure out what's original and what's not. And unlike trademark, it's really difficult to do the search. So that's something that's usually a good idea to talk to an attorney about because it's can get complicated kind of quickly, but it's cheap. The next one is patent. And patent is you have to get it before, and this is a general rule, before you bring the invention to market. Patents protect inventions. So it can be a design invention. So the Apple iPods are a design. The way they're designed, there's nothing about how they work on that design patent. It's more like what the product packaging looks like. What the when you put it in your ear, how it hangs down. That's called a design patent. The other one is a utility patent. We just talked about the cure for cancer. That's a utility patent. You develop the cure for cancer. No one has it, and then you get exclusivity for about 20 years, as long as you publish it. If you guys are thinking that you have something that's patentable, have a discussion with a patent attorney, because my issue with it is you patent it, you publish it we're talking about the world of infringement and counterfeiting. That's what today's discussion is about. In patent, you're publishing what you invented. Well, there are people sitting in every country looking through what the patents published are. They don't care if you patented it or not. I mean, they don't care about the rights. They're going to try and infringe against your rights. You're just publishing it out there. You better be really careful if you're going to, you're just, to me, you're picking a battle that you might not be able to win. And so now I'm not dissing patents. The whole point is you have to really think about it really strategically. To me, that's not my favorable form of protection. The fourth one is trade secret. So for example, if you have a cookie company that you sell on the internet, the cookie recipe is trade secret. I think that's almost
sauce. The Big Mac sauce is the trade secret.
The Coca-Cola formula, Vegemite, the whole thing. Like no one knows what's in these things. And so they make a big deal about not that much. I think the Coca-Cola formula is probably a big deal. It's a really underutilized form of protection, because if you can prove you took steps to make that secret and someone ends up with it, like an ex-employee or someone broke into your computer or whatever you hacked, and you could prove you took steps to do it, to keep it secret, that's That's it's a tortious and statutory action that you can bring against. So you take all these little forms of not little, but weave these pieces together, and you have an intellectual property strategy. If you have a strategy and you took some steps to protect all these little interweavings, then you have the formula, the ticket to be able to take down on Amazon or take down all those things, or who is all those things. But you need to take the steps first before otherwise you don't have any tools. Like your wall looks like it's made out of
the bricks are over there and the mortar is over there.
It's a liquid wall, or it's so I mean a domain in and of itself provides some protection. But really, I like to look at it like, what's your strategy? What's important to you? And how can we get that protected? A lot of times, if you're a startup, it's going to be the brand trademark first.
Okay. Can I just ask you there, because you mentioned domains. I'm wondering, and you mentioned that, there's all the different options you have, the .com, the .com.au, the .co, the fact that the .net, all those sorts of things, when you put them together, one, that's probably a very cheap way, I guess, to protect what you own, what are you talking, $50 each. But I was going to ask you, is it relevant to trademark your domain, like your key domain? So for me, it's selinaknight.com. Should I trademark that? Or is that a bit useless?
Yeah, it's a really relevant question, because in the United States, the Supreme Court just weighed in on it. Does a .com in and of itself provide some sort of protection? Generally, no. But we have 1-800-CONTACTS.com, which is actually the name of the company. So it's not 1-800-CONTACTS, it's 1-800-CONTACTS.com. If it's an established name of the brand and consumers recognize it as the name of the brand includes a .com, then Amazon kind of, some people might think Amazon.com is the name of the company. And so that might be trademarkable. But most of the time, they're going to disregard the .com, the trademark office. But it's a fluid area of the law. What I think is really important, this gets into international, is, all right, and in fact, I have cases right now where the infringement's occurring in the United States and Canada. And so, our northern neighbor, get the .cn, get the foreign domain names, get the EU, get Australia. This is really, really cheap protection. And chances are you're going to have a supply chain and a sales channel that is going to go international, especially if you're selling e-commerce or goods that are shipped, because ultimately, someone in Toronto, if you're in the United States, someone in Toronto, it's what, 30 miles from, well, it's more than that. I don't know, but it's not very far.
It's not that far. Globally,
yeah, it's really like
far.
They're not going to be like, well, that's a United States company. Yeah. So the point is your channel of commerce, you have to trace where it's coming from. So a lot of times it's going to be China. Ultimately, we want to pay some attention to where the product's coming from in your supply chain where you're getting it. And then ultimately, where do you think you're going to ship it out to? Because your wall has to cover a little bit of that place. And to me, the most obvious place to start is get the domain. At least it establishes some common law rights in those countries for $6, $10. When you're checking off the American one, well, why not put it up on the CN?
So once we have all of those things, or we've started to put those things in place, if we do find, let's just go with your Amazon example, because I think that is extremely pertinent, especially if you're a product manufacturer and your product is being made overseas. We see this time and time again. Your supplier makes it and then puts somebody else's label on it, and they're selling it white labeled or, on Amazon. If your products appear on Amazon, or say your brand appears on Amazon, what do you do?
So there's a couple of things that most people don't know is if you see your brand appear on Amazon and it's not your brand, chances are the infringement is much deeper than you even know. So what you see on the surface is kind of like the tip of the iceberg of the infringement that's probably going on around the world on your product. So that's already it can be a little too late. Courts in the United States are grappling with how to handle this. If someone researched that and looked at a list of how many, when someone sees one, there's actually, 375 of them, how to handle those, because it's a huge lawsuit. So, but the point is if you see it, it's probably deeper than you have. So then you take out your little cheat sheet, meaning, well, what was my IP plan? What did I protect the trademark? Did I protect the copyright? If you protect the copyright and you have a registered copyright, you can tell Amazon, hey, I have a registered copyright. You send it to Amazon, they'll take it down immediately. So they'll do immediate takedowns, but you have to tell them. Then there's something, and this is under American law, there's something called a counter notice, so that they would, they have, I believe, I should know this, but it's 20 days, I believe. They can say, the other side can say, hey, I didn't infringe. Now, what happens is a lot of the infringers are in China, and maybe that's an overstatement, but my experience is a lot of the infringers in China, and they don't care that much about American law. Like, they're infringers, or it's like they don't care, and they're not in the United States. And so they'll file the counter and say, I didn't infringe. Then you're stuck with having to sue them. Either you sue them or Amazon will put it back up.
Right.
And so that's how it works for copyright. Now, if you have that and you have a trademark infringement and you have a registered trademark, well, then you have two quivers in your bow, two ways to go about trying to take it down.
And how difficult is it so say we're in this scenario, we've seen our product on Amazon, we've lodged the form, Amazon have taken it down, the infringer has said, I didn't infringe, and now we have to sue them. Like, is that an expensive process? Is it a time-consuming process? Is it something you can do yourself?
In the United States, at least, it's very jurisdictional. So you have to sue in the proper venue. And, it's just like, and it's a big country. And so you have to find an attorney. So you usually call someone like an IP specialist like me, filing a complaint. Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, it's federal court. It's an unfortunate situation to be in. That's why the wall has to look pretty good, because you're going to avoid all this if you have a nice wall. It can be very daunting if we don't. That's why I'm emphasizing so much, Selena, that you really have to start with having a strategy, before any of that.
You've got to know what's important to you.
Right.
With all your experience with this, have you found that the infringers don't respond if it gets taken to the next level and you get a verdict or a judgment in your favor because they don't ever turn up? Because I don't know, I'm kind of thinking that the infringers are like, yeah, whatever, like two fingers up in the air, and we'll let this product go and we'll just move on to the next one.
Well, yeah, a lot of times they're not legit. So it's a shell game. It's always a cost-benefit evaluation. Like if we think we can get their account frozen quickly and get a preliminary injunction, then we know we're sitting in a pretty good place. Well, we just have to it's not that different with a surgeon doing surgery. When you go in, you don't know exactly what's going to be in there, but you're going to do it the best way you know how, for the cheapest amount of money to get the best result. And if you're going to end up, your leg is not functional, even if we do the surgery, then you'll probably just sew it back up and we'll figure out a plan B. And that's really
and you don't go to a dentist if you've got heart problems, do you? So this is really
no. I mean, it's
you're
really
not going to the person who brokered your mortgage if you've got a trademark problem. Can we move on to another example?
Sure.
So thank you so much for that. I think what you're basically trying to make everybody aware of is if you just do the basics, if you just spend a couple of thousands of dollars right at the beginning, a lot of these problems are going to be, if they turn up, are going to be a lot easier to solve and a lot cheaper to solve. Can we go on to the example that I saw where I saw a Facebook ad for what was clearly a scam website, and my flags went up because the price was just too cheap. But when I went to the website, it looked identical to the big brand. Like, as a seasoned marketer and someone who is aware of online, I could see how somebody could be scammed out of their money very, very easily. And it always amazes me that, one, these people manage to get a Meta ads account, like the effort, the hoops that you have to jump through, all those sorts of things. They got an ads account. They built a Shopify store. So, somehow they got through all the Shopify verification process, because quite often they are on Shopify. Because me, I go in and inspect the source because I'm always looking at these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And then if they do take your money, you don't get the product. I mean, potentially if you've paid with a credit card, you can try and get some legal recourse there. But as the business owner, if you see these things happening, what do you do? Like, what is step number one? If you can just walk us through, what are some simple things that we can do? And at what point do we call someone like you in?
Sure. So the first thing is to evaluate what exactly they're doing. Like if it's a complete web copy, you're going to want the domain frozen, taken down to something called ICANN, which is the International Domain Registry Protocol. And so you can strategically either do it through the courts in not any country, but most consumer countries, meaning where people buy a lot of stuff. You can also do it through ICANN. And so we're going to want to try and, get the domain taken down like ASAP. We're going to want to threaten prosecution for trademark infringement. Or you brought up something that's really true in trademark. Anyone could get a trademark, but when you get to be a famous brand, like if someone's ripping off Nike, well, they have additional rights that a normal brand wouldn't have because they're famous, and it's called what is called as brand tarnishment. And so there's actual penalties, additional penalties for tarnishing a famous brand. And so they have it a little better, but they also have, their legal fees.
Teams of legal people.
Yeah. I mean, teams. I just looked up, I don't remember the brand, but it was one of the brands, and I looked at almost 30% of their expense because it's a branding company. It's like a Nike. It wasn't Nike, but it was like a company like Nike. A branding company is going to spend 30% of all the revenue they make on enforcing the brand.
Protecting the brand, yeah.
Protecting the brand.
Back to what you said right at the beginning, which was what is important to you. And for them, what's important to them is the brand. They can stick their logo on anything and it's a Nike product. They're not known for just T-shirts.
And if they couldn't, they want to have a company. So it completely makes sense. And then the apparel costs like next to nothing for them to make. So, or they don't even make it, they license. So, but the point is they're a branding company. And so that's what they do. And so, you have to look at it like, we're going to have to spend, I don't cherish like spending people's money on trying to take this stuff down. So we're always going to, take a really, what's the best strategy? First, let's get the domain, take it down. Number two, let's threaten a federal lawsuit. Number three, it's always important to go for something called a preliminary injunction because we're going to try and freeze our assets in the U.S., which is very threatening to them. Sometimes they'll want to make it right, try and settle, because they know, like, hey, if they take all my money out of my account, that's worse than me, giving them some money.
I was going to say, I had never even thought about, until you mentioned it, I had never even thought about the potentially freezing someone's assets like that. To me, it was just like, stop impersonating my brand, but the freezing someone's assets not only makes it more real, but makes the effort more realistic, if that makes sense. And so can we even take a step back here? And I know that inside of, say, Meta, and this may not be your area of expertise, I'm just springing this one on you. Inside of Meta, you can always report, copyright infringement or something like that. I've tried to do that in the past. Nothing happens. Is there a way, like if it is a proper, this is my brand that's going to be tarnished, my customers are going to be scammed, is there a way to get someone like Meta to actually stand up and take notice? And then following on from that, is there something we can do with someone like Shopify or WooCommerce? I mean, WooCommerce is a little bit different because it's a public platform. It's an open platform that you build upon. So apart from just taking the website down, can we move to that next level of whoever is, let's say, hosting the content? Can we make those people do something against these big companies who, they just seem like they never listen?
I'd say it ebbs and flows is what I would say. I'd say I've had experiences where
the platforms are very receptive to takedowns, and then they change. And they're not exactly broadcasting when this occurs and when it doesn't. But we all have like channels inside some of these platforms to find out the skinny, but then they leave. They're huge companies. But the point is they go through an effort where it looks like they really are trying to do something, and they really even broadcast in the Wall Street Journal or something that they're spending $2.7 billion on these efforts and opening channels and going to trade shows. And then they don't for 2 years. Then they do, then they don't, then they do, then they don't. Depends who the chief legal officer is. Depends on what kind of PR they need. It's really like a complicated game. I think the most important thing is to just, be vigilant on you. And if you don't have anything to be vigilant about, like you have no protection, don't bother. No one's going to do anything. I always am trying to take little steps, teeny little steps to keep momentum and keep the ball moving. Like if you don't get a reaction from Amazon or Shopify or, whoever, what's the next teeny little step we can take that's not going to, cause a major disruption in your pocketbook or your life. And just keep on taking those steps until we're kind of past the point of no return. About 2 years ago, I lost on a case on this. The person waited too long. They waited a year. And the judge is like, well, if they waited a year, how important can it be to me? And so he's like, he put it at the back of the line. And it is kind of like my case in Florida. It's going to be like, we won't get it done until Christmas after next Christmas. So then you're kind of like, well, no one wants to stick around to watch them slowly, very slowly, move out of the market at the other side. So it's just really strategy matters so much at this point.
I think what this has highlighted for me is, one, you need to get that foundation in order. Like, don't be stingy, because spending, the things that you've said, the trademark, a few websites, maybe copyright, we're talking a couple of thousands of dollars, a couple of $1,000 now could save you 20, 30, 50. And the stress, like as someone who's been through a legal battle, the stress that it has on your whole entire, because these go for years sometimes, the stress that it has literally can tear you apart. But also having that trusted advisor, like at least knowing that if I have this problem, I'm going to need an IP attorney or a trademarks attorney, and knowing who to reach out to and say, this is my problem. Is it even, like you said, right back at the beginning, the cost benefit analysis, is it worth my while to do something about this?
For an early stage company, it's like, I get it. I had an early stage company. Any money is like, it's hard to spend. And so if you do a trademark right, you're going to do a thorough search. And the thorough search is going to be a common law search too. We're going to use a search service that goes on the internet and figures out all the iterations of possible. And you're going to get a really good idea if your brand is even a playable brand. Whereas if you just file a trademark, you're not going to find that out for 3, 4, because by the time it's examined and then you get an officer, you're talking about maybe up to 3 years. So it's good to know like where your brand sits up front. The second thing is ultimately, what do we want to do as counsel? We want to build a company that's going to make it through due diligence. Even if you don't think you're ever going to sell the company, we want to have that kind of company that they're going to, when you get to due diligence and they offer you, you get a term sheet for $5 million, that they're going to pay you $5 million at the time of the closing because everything looks in order. If you don't have a trademark strategy or you don't have a copyright strategy, you've been infringed upon and you really never did anything about it, or you put yourself in that position, even if you get that term sheet, it's going to start going down to 4. They're going to look at this and it's going to go down to 3 million, or they might not complete the transaction. But I have seen, where we get to that checklist and you're like, these items are nowhere to be found and no one's interested.
No. I mean, that's one of the first things we say too is own your IP. Like, if you don't own your IP, what are they going to buy?
And document it like you took it seriously. So just for that reason and that reason alone, even if you're like, well, I have such a unique invention, I'm never going to get infringed, whatever. But then you make steps on why that is such a unique invention and that you took care of it that way.
Steven Weigler, you've given us some excellent information, some great takeaways, some great action steps if we haven't already done that in our business. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And if people want to reach out to you to get some help, hopefully not because they've been infringed upon, but to build that wall, where can they find you?
Our website is www.emergeconsole, E-M-E-R-G-E, console.com, consel.com. And we offer free initial consults. Our initial goal is we want to really grow with our clients. And so we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your brand. We want to get to know what you're thinking. But we have our trademark program is called Total TM, and it's very thorough and very program oriented and cost effective. And so if you want a free initial search or you just want to talk about your business, please just book some time with me and we'd love to talk to you. There's also a lot of good resources on the website.
Thank you so much for all of that.
Pleasure.
So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelenaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.